Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jennifer H. Cunningham, president of the Newswomen's Club of New York. Thank you all for being here at our 83rd Annual Front Page Awards. We're celebrating the best in journalism from a year that was full of twists and turns, including an impeachment, a pandemic, a national reckoning on race, and a bruising presidential election. Tonight, we honor the newswomen who were on the front lines of all of these crises, speaking truth to power, shedding light for the American people, and holding those in power to account. This reporting is a reminder that for every injustice committed, there is a newswoman ready to cover it with impartial ears and an open heart. As we honor this great work, I believe it's more imperative than ever for the press to remain vigilant and to carry the torch that shines the light in dark corners. Putting on the Front Page Awards is a grand effort, and this year was no different. The Club Awards Committee is comprised of all volunteer working newswomen. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Stephanie Brumsey, our Vice President of Special Events, and the Front Page Awards Committee for their commitment and service to our club. I'd also like to thank our sponsors and our special surprise guests for their contributions to making these awards possible. The Newswomen's Club is moving into its 99th year of existence, and it was founded by some of the greatest journalists of the day. Some may argue some of the greatest journalists in history. At a time when our nation was in between wars and women were fighting for a place in the newsroom. The club was created to support women and their work and to set the bar for the highest standards of journalism. And tonight, we salute the journalists who came before us, the journalists who are watching this right now, and the journalists everywhere working tirelessly against all odds. Now, I'd like to turn it over to our first presenter, Allison Chantel of Business Insider, who will present awards for the Wires category. Over to you, Allison.
Hi, everybody. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you today, even in this virtual setting, to recognize some truly incredible journalism and some awesome women. My name is Allison Chantel, and I'm the co-editor-in-chief of Business Insider. So let's announce some front page awards. Up first, we have a front page award for beat reporting, and it's going to Gabriella Border from Reuters for her exceptional, consistent reporting on the front lines of COVID. Her stories included a nurse struggled with COVID-19 trauma. He was found dead in his car. Mourning a supermom. U.S. health worker casualties mount in virus fight. U.S. nurses who can't get tested fear they're spreading COVID-19. I'm never going to be the same. Medics grapple with mental trauma on COVID-19 frontline. And finally, on the next COVID-19 frontline, nurse tends to discharge patients at home. The judges felt that Gabriella showed exceptional journalism courage and doggedness for profiling the mental health and consequences of healthcare workers across the U.S., as well as how the pandemic impacted their personal well-being. Bravo, Gabriella, awesome work. Next up, we've got a front page award for breaking spot news, and that's going to Sabrina Wilmer of Bloomberg for her story, Billionaire Fisher Shocks with Sexual Remarks and Then Wonders Why. The judges felt that Wilmer's work on the breaking story of Ken Fisher's sexual comments, the response and backlash from conference organizers and attendees, as well as the lack of fallout, showed tremendous access. The reporter showed a keen understanding of the story's context during the Me Too movement and just had excellent work all around. So congrats to Sabrina. The next front page award for feature journalism goes to Jennifer Peltz of the Associated Press for her article, Still Scared: Health Workers Feel the Toll of the Virus Fight. The judges felt that Peltz provided thorough reporting from the front lines of the COVID-19 outbreak in New York City at Elmhurst Hospital and captured the mood and outlook of healthcare workers following the height of the pandemic. The reporter's access made the story one of the most compelling in the competition this year, so very big congrats to Jennifer. Finally, the front page award for investigative reporting goes to Suzanne Barley of Reuters for her story, A U.S. University Insured a Chinese Student Tuition Against the Virus, and then COVID-19 hit. The judges felt that this story was well reported with a strong narrative that showed the intersection of insurance, colleges, and the coronavirus. Ms. Barlin included fascinating details of the events that explain the intricacies of the issues. It's a timely story, well-sourced, with great details that pulled it all in for the reader. So huge congrats to Suzanne. And with that, thank you so much.
Hey everyone, it's great to be with you virtually. Congratulations to all of the winners and all of the competitors. What an amazing event for the Newswomen's Club of New York and the Front Page Awards of 2020. By the way, when I won a Front Page Award, it was one of the first awards I ever won in journalism, and I was so proud and so excited to be recognized by you. So thank you for all of the work that you do, almost for 100 years, of recognizing women and our journalism. So congratulations, especially to the audio award winners. That's right. Congratulations to the winners in the feature category for 100 Years of Power. I'm going to name everybody who was part of this production. Colleen DeBays, Sue Williams, Victoria Wang, Victoria Flexner, Corinne Lech, and Christine Kelly, Noel Flego, and someone who I know well. Hey, Nusha Bailan. It's good to see you, former employee of Futuro. Congratulations for your work on the Story Exchange for 100 Years of Power, an incredible series that looked at the 100 years of celebration of suffrage and making connections from 100 years ago to now. So we thank you so much for that work. The judges said it was incredibly well produced and kept all of the stories moving. What more do you want in audio? All right. For investigative reporting, audio, congratulations to Jennifer Strong and Emma Silkins. For MIT Technology Review, In Machines We Trust, an investigation into the rise of facial recognition technology in policing, which we know is so important. So congratulations for that work for investigative reporting in the audio category. We appreciate you so much for recognizing the importance of audio and podcasts and radio reporting. And congratulations to my friend and colleague, Joyanne Reed. We're so proud of you. Thank you for being a great representative of our profession. And thank you to everyone who's a part of this club. I can't wait to see you in person. I promise to be there and give you big hugs. Congratulations, winners.
Hi, I'm Karen Tulin, Bloomberg News in New York, and I'm honored to present the winners in the documentary category. First off, we have long-form documentary. The winners are Sandra Petty and Rochelle Brightman from Newsday for Sunny Speaks, following decades of an organized crime stories where they've been depicted as clinical or terrifying, sometimes glamorous. This really well-told documentary followed a crime family peppered with surprising turns, including the fact that this one ice-cold killer was actually a loving and supportive dad. So congratulations to Sandra and Rochelle. And for short-form documentary, the winners are Samantha Stark and Gina Colato of the New York Times for My Blood. The judges say in a field of strong entries, this beautifully told documentary really stood out, telling the tale of a disease that is really undercovered, really telling a beautiful story, really breaking it down. Helen's sister in particular, a powerful narrator, and telling a moving story throughout. And in particular, one judge said that the ending broke their heart. So congratulations to Samantha and Gina from all of us.
Thank you all so much. I love your organization, and I do have the privilege of honoring great local news reporting. When I started at New York One 28 years ago, our founder, Dick Aurelio, a great believer in local news, wanted to give the city a hometown news channel that would enhance the everyday lives of New Yorkers. Well, now I fear that local news today too often caves to the pressures of personality journalism, which might make celebrities of its newscasters, but offers little in the way of reliably sourced information. And it is stunning today that opinion seems to hold the same weight as fact in our business. And call me old school, but that is a direction that will spell our doom. Opinion is dangerous because we're all entitled to our own these days, regardless of the truth. And it has caused bitter divisions among us. We're all retreating to our own corners, not listening to each other. The only way to reverse that trend is to raise the standards and do the hard work of reporting the absolute facts as we learn them. Responsible, accurate journalism that we can trust is needed now more than ever. And so we hail the following women who remind us why our founding fathers put put press freedoms first among their amendments. So, the winners of the 2020 Front Page Awards in local reporting are, first in the category of breaking news, Monica Hayter of CNN. Her piece, Fire Devastates New York Museum of Chinese American Life, and the judges' comments, and I'm quoting here, breaking news is always a tricky format when juggling a developing story, but Monica did a fantastic job of not only covering the immediate devastation of the fire, but also of weaving in the context for why the event itself was so devastating for the Chinese community. She thoughtfully wove in details about the archive and the context of Chinese history, both in describing what was lost, but also in the place these artifacts had in the local New York City community. Very well done, Monica. All right, in the category of features, Clarissa Diaz of Gothamist, entitled The Push to Turn New York City's Polluting Peaker Plants to Publicly Owned Solar Power. The judges' comments, once again, I quote, "This story rose above and beyond. Clarissa provided such thoughtful reporting. It's written well and dives into the nitty-gritty of issues around providing power across the city, a topic that easily could have been dry and technical, but she made it understandable and interesting. Not only was it a great read, but it also provided useful information and context for people who live in the city. Loved how she connected the immediate issues in the Bronx, not just to exemplify in other states or as examples in other states, but also the dive into the Sunset Park model as an example in the same city to show one way to move forward. The use of data as a reporting tool tied with voices from the community really made this story sing. Fantastic work, say the judges. In the category of investigative reporting, Phoebe Eaton of Air Mail, the Making of a Predator series, Part 1, The Why of Harvey Weinstein, Part 2, Bob Weinstein, Brother Betrayer, and Part 3, Weinstein's Wife. The judges' comments, quote again, this series was thorough, innovative, and informative. Covering powerful men like Harvey Weinstein is always tricky and difficult, but Phoebe hit it out of the park, doing a fantastic job, not just covering the nitty-gritty of issues surrounding what has been a notorious case, but also getting these men to talk to her. This is what investigative journalism is made for, speaking truth to power. Really well done. Congratulations, ladies. You all did a fantastic job.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. Thank you for inviting me to speak at the 83rd Annual Front Page Awards. You know, it's really amazing to think how far women in journalism have come since your club was formed nearly 100 years ago. With a few trailblazers like Nellie Bly and Emma Bugbee leading the way, women of your field were literally barred from newsrooms. That's why the Newswomen's Club was formed in the first place. The voices and perspectives from women were not given the respect or authority they deserved for literally decades and decades. My experience as a child with the media was nightly watching a trusted old white guy named Walter Cronkite during the Vietnam conflict. It seemed to me news people were always, well, old white guys. As a high schooler and early in college, I took my first stabs at trying to influence coverage of the news by the media. I was an intern at Democratic headquarters, and my mentor was a young guy named Tim Russert. We worked together on Senator Moynihan's campaign, and he let me write some press releases. One actually got printed in the Buffalo Evening News after very substantial editing by Tim. But still, I never saw a woman working in journalism. And as a college student, I learned the power of the press as an influence for social change. My friends, mostly all male at the Daily Orange and students at the Newhouse School at Syracuse, supported the changes that I, as vice president of the student body, fought for and advocated, like divesting Syracuse University's holdings in South Africa during apartheid, or even having our new Dome Stadium named after the first Black Heisman Trophy winner, Ernie Davis. I tell you these reflections not to point out how old I am, but to let you know that throughout my life, I have appreciated the role of journalists, but I've always wondered why there were not more women. As New York State's highest female official, I know a little bit about being in a male-dominated field, but I will tell you this. I am so glad to have lived long enough to see, more often than not, the prominent bylines and news shows headed up by women and more women of color. I say it's about time. When covering seismic events like the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movements, women need to be the storytellers because women were disproportionately affected by COVID-19. Women journalists feel their pain, not being able to see their loved ones on their deathbeds. Moms having to quit their jobs because there's no one to watch the kids while they're supposedly learning remotely. Nurses and frontline workers in grocery stores and drugstores all exposed, knowing they could bring a deadly virus home just from doing their jobs. Communities of color were hardest hit, and they need to see people who look like them to build that essential trust and to be told what to do literally to survive. And let's not forget, it was women of color who started Black Lives Matter. And just a few weeks ago, women of color won the red state of Georgia in an election that will alter the path our nation is on. Let's admit it, women get stuff done. And the narrative of the eruptions that are occurring almost by the minute need to be told by individuals who are trusted and understand the anxieties of the people they are covering. It is the women of the news media who are trusted at a time when there is an assault on the integrity of the free press, assaults on our most revered institutions, and assaults literally on our Capitol. Building trust and being candid with the public are the only ways back from the abyss. Governor Cuomo saw that when he gave daily media presentations to reassure an anxious nation during the height of the pandemic. My role was to daily reinforce our messages regarding COVID, with now over 530 media interviews, everything from MSNBC to Bloomberg, local cable, country western, public radio, hip hop, you name it, I've been on it. And without fail, I thank the interviewer for the role that they too have played in relaying the truth to the public and building the confidence we need to win the war against COVID. And so, newswomen, you have my admiration and I salute you. Your jobs have risks, stress, frustrations, inherent gender and racial biases, and you still have your own families to worry about. But you are part of one of the pillars of our democracy that we have to fight to protect. And as tough New York women, we will succeed. On behalf of Governor Cuomo and myself, congratulations to all the front page awardees for dedicating yourselves to a free and fair press. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Zaharek, film critic at Time Magazine, and I'm thrilled to present the 2020 Front Page Award winners in the magazine category. The Essay Award goes to Molly Fisher, New York Magazine, for A City of Bodies. The judges' comments. A City of Bodies captured the chilling emotions that swept through New York as the city slowly woke to the notion that it was not just in the grip of a pandemic, but was the U.S. epicenter of the outbreak. The beautiful, detailed, personal writing of Molly Fisher would touch a chord with anyone who lived in New York and anyone who loves the Big Apple from afar. The feature award goes to Jamie Ducharme, Time, for Face of Change. The judges comment. Jamie Ducharme's feature about the first African-American face transplant not only captured the challenging personal story of one man, but pulled back from the specifics of this heartbreaking and heartwarming story to shine a light on the racial inequities prevalent in the U.S. healthcare system. In the interview category, Kayla Webley Adler, L, for Being Every Woman is Katie Porter's Superpower. The judges comment. Kayla Webley Adler has captured the essence of Katie Porter's personality and how it has shaped her role in Congress. She did a fabulous job of showing and not telling Ms. Porter's everyday life as a congresswoman and parent, and managed to add detailed descriptions following interviews only done through Zoom. And for investigative reporting, Rachel Aviv, The New Yorker, for Punishment by Pandemic. In a penitentiary with one of the U.S.'s largest coronavirus outbreaks, prison terms become death sentences. The judges comment. Rachel Aviv did an outstanding job in her article. This was well told, very nicely written, chock full of small, vivid details about a population that could be, and often is, easily overlooked. Congratulations to Molly, Jamie, Kayla, and Rachel.
Hi, everybody. This is Ginger Otis from the New York Daily News, and I'm happy to be here this evening to present at the 2020 Front Page Award Winners Ceremony. My category is newspapers. And so the winners this year for beat reporting are Vanessa Furmans, Lauren Weber, Sarah Cheney of the Wall Street Journal for their series on the career challenges that women face. For breaking news, Jennifer Kalfas of the Wall Street Journal for her work on covering the coronavirus epidemic. For feature reporting, the winners are Amy Padani, Veronica Chambers, Annika Burgess of the New York Times for their Mrs. File series. And for investigative reporting, Kashmir Hill of the New York Times on global facial recognition technology and the impact that it has on the public. Congratulations to all the winners, to everyone who participated, and be well.
Hi, I'm Erin Haynes, editor-at-large at The 19th, a nonprofit independent newsroom focused on the intersection of gender, politics, and policy. It is my honor to participate in this year's Front Page Awards, although I wish I could be there with you in person. For nearly a century, the Newswomen's Club of New York has highlighted the important role of women journalists, something we at The 19th obviously recognize and believe in as urgent and very necessary. Congratulations to all of the winners, and with that, let's find out who's next. So I've got the online category, starting with blogs. Caroline Fairchild of LinkedIn News for her collection of work on women and how they were impacted by the pandemic. For breaking news, Victoria B. Kimpius at The Guardian for her series on Ghislaine Maxwell. The judges' comments included that these were such great stories and that breaking news is always a tricky format when juggling a developing story. But Victoria did a fantastic job of covering the nitty-gritty issues surrounding Ms. Maxwell and what had been a notorious case. Really well done. For digital video, Cassie Bracken, Emily Ryan, Samin Amin, Solana Pine of the New York Times. For Lord Have Mercy, inside one of New York's deadliest zip codes. For feature, Katie Engelhardt of the California Sunday Magazine. What Happened in Room 10? A story about the Life Care COVID-19 hotspot, which judges said was timely, relevant, and detailed. For investigative reporting, Tess Owen of Vice News for her body of work on the Boogaloo Boys. Multimedia news package, Allison McCann, Simone Landon, Megan Lutte, Destiny Charisse Royal, Grace Malouf, The New York Times. NYPD says it used restraint during protests. Here's what the videos show. The judges call this an outstanding use of multiple formats to tell a compelling, uncomfortable, and necessary story. And last but not least, in social media video, Madison Paglia of Bloomberg for No Water, No Electric, Surviving COVID-19 on the Navajo Reservation. Again, congratulations to everyone. Hopefully we can all celebrate this with a drink outside again together soon. Take care.
Congratulations to all the women being recognized this evening for their important work. This year in particular, we have seen the power unleashed by telling the stories of those whose voices are typically never heard. Congratulations also to the Newswomen's Club of New York, which has been supporting female journalists since just a couple of years after women got the right to vote. As the founders of this group knew, and as our honorees this evening can confirm, standing up for what's right, insisting that important information be shared, isn't easy. But occasions like this, when we recognize the noble work you do, are, I hope, a little extra gas in the tank, fuel that will propel you towards that next big scoop, a wrong being righted, and a reminder to everyone that solid journalism is the underpinning of a democratic society. Congratulations, and keep telling those stories.
Good evening. I'm photojournalist Meredith Kohut, and it's a pleasure to join with you all and celebrate the achievements of so many truly remarkable newswomen. Generations of women have fiercely fought for our voices to be represented in this industry, and we must continue to constantly lift each other up, to empower each other, and strengthen the sisterhood in our newsrooms. Thank you to each of you who have dedicated your time and your energy to the Newswomen's Club of New York in support of women journalists. What a year it has been. when the streets emptied in the city that never sleeps, and New York City became the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, when merely leaving your own home and being in close proximity with others became a threat to one's health, and when powerful disinformation campaigns constantly attacked journalism, science, truth, and facts, the world relied on the eyes of brave photographers to show them the true reality of what was happening outside of their doors. It is an honor to share in recognizing the brave women who have documented this historic year, and to present you the winners of the 2020 Front Page Awards for Photography. For Best Coronavirus Photo, the winner is Gina Moon. The judges said, "We thought it was very important to add this special category for Best Coronavirus Photo this extraordinary year. This frame combines the elements of solitude and grief, capturing astonishing loss for New York and the world." Gina Moon was one of the New York photographers that doggedly covered the crisis in New York City. For Best Breaking News Photograph, the winner is again Gina Moon. The judges' comments about this photograph were, "This quiet image captures the intensity of the protests against police brutality that caught worldwide attention this summer. By focusing on the car itself instead of the protesters, this photo puts the viewer on the scene as a bystander, encouraging the consideration of their own relationship with the police." In the feature category, the winner is Natalie Kesar for her work titled "We Do This for the Living: Inside New York's Citywide Effort to Bury Its Dead," published in Time magazine. The judges said that they chose this project because, quote, "The photography puts faces in an under-celebrated sector of essential workers who put their lives on the line at the peak of the pandemic in New York City. The nuanced portraits pay tribute to the resilient volunteers with the heart-rending assignment of burying the dead." For Best Photo Editing, the winner is Morgan McCarthy from the New York Times for the story "The Last Anointing." The judges said, I quote, "This project deftly navigates the intimate and rarely seen final moments of lives, further complicated by the coronavirus. The poetic selection demonstrates great care and thoughtfulness with respect to the privacy and dignity of the patients documented. And the editors also oversaw the access and safety for a photographer bearing witness to life's most private moments in a high-risk environment." The winner of Best Photo Essay is Haruka Sakaguchi for her series published in Time magazine entitled "I Will Not Stand Silent: 10 Asian Americans Reflect on Racism During the Pandemic and the Need for Equality." The judges' comments about her win are, "Haruka Sakaguchi's project poignantly explores how Asian Americans are experiencing racism during the coronavirus pandemic, highlighting both the public nature and the casualness of the attacks, while maintaining the dignity of the individuals included in the project. At a time when such attacks are on the rise, the conceptual rigor of this photo essay is effective, allowing the viewer to relate to the moments of xenophobia without glorifying or re-victimizing." The final category for Best Sports Photograph is awarded to Alejandra Villa Lorarca from Newsday. The judges said, "Her evocative photograph of a trainer working out a young boxer during the pandemic is masterful. The composition, the texture, the lighting, even the look in the subject's eyes makes the photograph a story unto itself. Well done." That concludes the category of photography. Congratulations to all the winners.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy O'Dell, and I am so honored to be presenting some of the Front Page Awards so we can pay tribute to some amazing women for their journalistic achievements. So thank you very much for having me. And here are the winners for specialized reporting. For the arts category, the winner is Taffy Burdesser-Ackner of the New York Times for "This Tom Hanks Story Will Help You Feel Less Bad." For the business category, The winner is Emily Flitter of the New York Times for her Banking While Black series. This is what racism sounds like in the banking industry. Banking while Black, how cashing a check can be a minefield. And Black-owned businesses could face hurdles in federal aid program. And the judges were full of praise for this work. They wrote, quote, "This exceptional and aggressively reported series of stories shine a light on an institutional failing facing many African Americans. Access to credit, bank accounts, and other financial resources, which others take for granted, is often denied or difficult to obtain because of their race." The judges also said, quote, "It's worth noting that in the wake of Ms. Flitter's stories, one of the biggest banks named in the series pledged to spend tens of billions of dollars to address and correct some of the shortcomings identified. Lawmakers and policymakers would do well to read each installment closely," end quote. And for editorial opinion criticism, the winner is Dipti Hajala of the Associated Press for her piece, "As New York City Awakens, Navigating a Strange New Normal." And the judges said, quote, "This piece chronicles beautifully the changes the coronavirus pandemic has wrought on New York City. The writer deftly captures the day-to-day shift in our lives, but also poses the question, who do we become when we can't be who we were?" And next is the education category. The winners are Amy Zimmer, Christina Vega, and Gabriel Lamar Lamy of Chalkbeat for their work, "How Safe is the Air Inside Your New York City Classroom?" The judges said, quote, "In this deeply researched article about a vital issue, the author renders an extraordinary public service. They list a chart containing air quality data they have compiled for every school in New York City. It includes a link to the most recent inspection reports publicly available for each of those city schools. A standout article in a very competitive field," end quote. And the winner for the environment category is the Counter's Jessica McKenzie for The Misbegotten Promise of Anaerobic Digesters. The judges were impressed with Ms. McKenzie's work. They wrote, quote, "Jessica McKenzie dug deep into a messy story about why using anaerobic digesters to convert animal waste into renewable energy doesn't do much to reduce greenhouse emissions and may actually create more problems, notwithstanding millions of dollars of government funding. Good reporting draws in experts, but great reporting also draws in those with little expertise, who then go on to share it with others, as the judges did with Ms. McKenzie's winning story," end quote. And in medicine, health, fitness, the winner is Pam Bellick of the New York Times for COVID's Mysterious and Devastating Assault. The judges wrote, quote, "With the U.S. in lockdown during the darkest early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Pam Bellick beamed a light on exactly how this deadly virus was affecting real people. Her intrepid and timely reporting was a great public service because she also showed what medical professionals in the trenches were seeing and learning about COVID-19, end quote. And for the personal service category, well, the winners are Julia Carpenter, Laura Saunders, and Francesca Fontana of the Wall Street Journal for The New Rules of Money. And the judges said, quote, "This is a comprehensive way of taking a complicated topic and approaching it in an accessible way that feels equal parts service and narrative. The three stories each bring a new layer to this portfolio, and through deep reporting, expert financial analysis, and personal vignettes, they combine to illustrate the challenges that young people entering the economy face in a dynamic and engaging way. The visual elements are all working together here as well, with an excellent mix of photography, graphics, and video," end quote. And in the politics category, well, the winners are Ashley Parrish, Dana Holler, Alicia Menendez, Shalini Sharma, Charisse Lorado, Christine Nguyen, and Heather Seidel of NBC for their work, Power of Women, the Changing Faces of American Politics. And for science technology, the winner is Jessica Fu of The Counter for Scientists Are Trying to Make Crops Love Salt. And last but certainly not least, in sports, the winner is Stefania Bell of ESPN for Project 11. The judges wrote, "The hour-long documentary sheds light on Washington Redskins quarterback Alex Smith and his recovery following a devastating injury. It was so difficult to watch, but so incredibly necessary. So many people watch sports, understand these athletes get hurt in the course of the job, but we never imagined such a riveting and difficult recovery. Bell gave us incredible insight into an amazing person and process. You walk away with a new appreciation for athletes and the journalists who bring you the stories that stay with you long after the video has ended. End quote. Congratulations to all the winners. Amazing journalists, amazing winners. An honor to be a part.
Good evening, everyone. It's Juju Chang, co-anchor of ABC News Nightline. As a former Lifetime Achievement honoree, I am so pleased and honored to be here with you for the virtual Front Page Awards. This year, perhaps more than ever, I'm so grateful to the Newswomen's Club of New York for sustaining such an important spotlight on the work of women journalists. And of course, congratulations to all the outstanding women whose brave and brilliant storytelling we are about to celebrate tonight. Let's get to it. In the category of breaking news, the winners are Stephanie Brumsey, Raylan Johnson, Christine Kim, Yelda Altalif, Yvette Miley, Amnika Thompson, all for MSNBC's The Legacy of John Lewis. The judges hailed the report as provocative, informative. It's like a whole semester of American history and African American history rolled into one narrative and a tie to the future movement of Black Lives Matter. Congratulations to the MSNBC team. In the category of feature, the winner is Emily Casey, director at PBS Frontline and the Marshall Project for Undocumented in the Pandemic. Judges praised Casey's story as a first-hand look at the toll that homelessness and poverty take as the family fights to get their father released from an ICE detention center where COVID is spreading unchecked, reminding us all how 2020 has been even worse for the less fortunate among us. Congratulations to Casey. In the category of interview, the winners are Terry Hurlbert, Deborah Roberts, Jessica Nujinis, Sabina Gebremedin, Brittany Berkowitz, Lauren Schur, Katerina Andriano, Tina Zhao, Julia Horowitz, Dara Alasfar, all for ABC News' interview, Their Painful Bond. Black mothers speak out together on their unimaginable loss. The judges noted that by examining the tragedy of Black lives lost at the hands of law enforcement from the angle of the victims' mothers, the result gave viewers a hard look at the human impact of the ongoing racial reckoning in the United States. Congratulations to Team ABC. In the category of special programming, public affairs, or editorial, the winners are Caitlin Persia, Christine Kim, Barry Lazar Aarons, Yvette Miley, Amnika Thompson, all for MSNBC, Imagining America Anew, Eddie Glaude in his own words. The judges commended the striking video grid of protests in 15 different cities, underscored by Glaude's message. A version of America is dying. We hear its death rattle, loud and violent. But a new America is desperately trying to be born. We are its midwives. We have the responsibility to imagine America anew. Congratulations. In the category of special reporting, investigative, or enterprise, the winners are Dana Bash, Nellie Black, Bridget Nolan, Patricia DiCarlo, Samira Jafari. For CNN Investigates, Dr. Haddon. The judges applauded Dana Bash's exclusive interview with Evelyn Yang, wife of then presidential candidate Andrew Yang, who revealed sexual abuse by a gynecologist years earlier. The doctor, while disbarred, pled guilty to lesser charges and avoided jail time. The interview prompted other women to share stories of abuse from the same doctor. CNN's exposure of a sweetheart deal from the New York DA prompted authorities to reopen the case, eventually resulting in more charges against the doctor. Congratulations to Team CNN.
Congratulations, Front Page Award winners. My name is Toni Reinhold. I'm a past president of the Newswomen's Club of New York and a senior publishing editor at the Wall Street Journal. From the day in 1880 when Nellie Bly started working as a reporter for the Pittsburgh Dispatch, she recognized the power of the press and the written word. Determined not to be relegated to the women's pages, Bly created a new form of journalism, going undercover to report on the plight of the common man. Her investigation into the Blackwell's Island Insane Asylum is still considered the finest piece of investigative reporting. Bly gained international acclaim through her record-setting trip around the world in 72 days. Remarkably, the strength of her byline and her indomitable spirit gained her access to the Eastern Front during World War I before any other foreign correspondent, male or female. Bly was the only reporter to report from the trenches. Nellie Bly died in 1922, the year the Newswomen's Club of New York was founded. But her legacy lives on through her work and this award. This year's Nellie Bly Award for the best bylined front page newspaper story goes to Shalini Ramachandran, Laura Cusisto, and Katie Honan of the Wall Street Journal for their story, How New York's Coronavirus Response Made the Pandemic Worse. Congratulations. Mask up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kaidi Tong. I am so delighted to be a part of this year's Front Page Awards. I've been in the news business for a long, long time, more than 40 years now. So I'm especially honored and delighted to be presenting the coveted Martha Komen Award for Best New Journalist. This year, it goes to Emma Goldberg of the New York Times. This extraordinary young woman, a native New Yorker, by the way, has been in the news business for less than 3 years, and she's already written more than 55 articles for the paper. Among them, an investigation into non-consensual pelvic exams across the United States, which triggered a U.S. Senate investigation into the practice. Her investigation into abuse, physical and sexual, at the Human Resources Administration got Mayor de Blasio's attention. And that led to new security and policing at New York's biggest social services agency. An article Emma did on financial barriers for low-income students in medical schools, that has been made mandatory reading for all first years at Harvard Medical School. Heavy-hitting stuff requiring meticulous research. She started her career at the Times as a researcher. But she also has a flair for the lighthearted and humorous. I really enjoyed her article, for example, on taking the SATs again. A delightful take on what it's like to take it today in a pandemic compared to when she took them about 10 years ago. It begins like this. How did you like taking the SATs, my editor asked me. And would you like to take them again? I laughed, wondering whether there was a single self-respecting person in America who would answer yes. It's wonderful writing. And it is my great honor and pleasure to present this year's Martha Komen Award for Best New Journalist to the wonderfully talented Emma Goldberg. Congratulations, Emma, and congratulations to all the winners.
My name is Valerie Jarrett, and I want to say hello to the Newswomen's Club of New York, and to really give a special shout out to my friend Joy Reid, who I know you are honoring tonight, and to all of the women in journalism. You make such an important contribution. Your voices matter, your representation matters, the way you define the news we consume all matters. And at this extraordinary time in our nation's history, it is so important that your voices be there and that you have the support of an entire community. So I want to add my voice to that community, congratulate everybody who's a part of this important organization, and please keep up the amazing work.
Hi, I'm Reverend Al Sharpton, President, founder of National Action Network. One of the great issues that we have seen in media is the issue of diversity. Ever since I was a teenager as youth director of the Operation Breadbasket chapter in New York, it was founded nationally by Dr. King. I remember Dr. William Jones and others would fight about diversity in media. And when I was a teenager, we had a lady named Emma Bowen that had a whole group around that, and we would fight for it. And now to see that we're finally getting more diversity. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're doing a lot better, because diversity in media gives people the real story of the times that we live in and the people that we are talking to, talking for, and trying to give information with. And it is in that spirit. There are many in what we call, in preacher language, there are many people in the forest, but there are few tall trees. And we have one with us today. She is the reporter on racial justice and injustice issues for the New York Times Magazine. She is a Pulitzer Prize winner, and I think that probably the most deserving I could think of in recent times. She's the creator of the 1619 project that is one of the outstanding works of all times. It's my honor to bring to you one who not only became a reporter and became a woman in this space, but brought it to new levels. May we hear from the one and only Nicole Hannah-Jones.
Good evening. I am so excited to announce that my dear friend Nikita Steward was chosen by the board to be the inaugural Ida B. Wells Award winner because of the compelling journalism and astute sociology that emanates from her pieces. Since coming to the New York Times, it is that type of reporting that centers the humanity of all New Yorkers for which Nikita has stood out. The victims of the coronavirus pandemic in New York City as the virus surged were not presented as names amongst the skyrocketing numbers, but as wives and children and friends. The children forced to learn from home weren't just faces in a crowd, but a little girl who lacks a home to learn from and no internet to learn on. It's that through line, that centering of humanity, and also the professionalism as a reporter that made Nikita an obvious choice for a winner of this award. Because each of her stories humanizes a portion of the population that is often overlooked and gives voice to people who are not voiceless, but whose voices we too often ignore. Nikita exposes the social structure of homelessness, poverty, and inequality in her work with a distinct focus on people of color. It is for that she has been given this highest honor. I'm so happy to call her my friend and so thankful to be a journalist working as her colleague. Nikita, congratulations.
In 2015, the Times asked me if I would be interested in covering social services. And I had to ask myself why I hadn't covered social services in all the years that I had been a reporter. And I realized that it was just because it hit too close to home. And there's this tendency for people like me who've experienced poverty to not talk about it. You want to forget about it like it didn't happen. But if we all keep this secret, it creates a stigma where there shouldn't be one.
Thank you for honoring me with the inaugural Ida B. Wells Award for covering communities of color. I cannot believe I'm getting an award with the name of this prestigious journalist, a champion of justice. She was so great that I doubted myself when I got the call that I had won. I didn't even know I had been nominated. Ridding ourselves of that doubt, that imposter syndrome, is one of the reasons I have so admired the Newswomen's Club of New York. You remind women that we belong, that we are damn good. I later found out that Kirsten Danis, my editor, had nominated me. She also encouraged me to take the leap to become an editor. I was reluctant because, again, imposter syndrome. But this is what she wrote to me. Tape it to your monitor. Why not me? Because you'll get 1,000 messages why it shouldn't be you. But that's bull. You are the person you've been waiting for. I don't mean there's not things you can learn or that you won't mess up, but why not you? Thank you to Kirsten and other folks at the New York Times for believing in me and encouraging me. Thank you to Nicole Hannah-Jones, the incredible genius, for always being in my corner. More than any other journalist I know, Nicole has made sure that Ida B. Wells gets her due, from forming the Ida B. Wells Society for Investigative Reporting to pushing to rename streets in her honor. It was so fitting that Nicole and Wells won the Pulitzer in the same year. I'm thankful to have her in my life as a colleague and as a friend. I also want to thank my family for supporting me and shaping me. We sometimes didn't have much, but my mother always made sure we had enough to get a newspaper subscription. When she saw that I was committed to becoming a journalist, she saved for a Pentax camera and a Brother word processor. Most of all, thank you to the people who have allowed me to come into their homes, to their jobs, and into their intimate spaces. I had been reluctant to take on the beat of social services, but I knew particularly when it came to homelessness, the people affected looked like me. I wasn't always pleased with the way we were portrayed in the media. I asked myself, how do I want people to write about me? How do I want people to see me? Thank you to the Newswomen's Club for this prestigious honor once again.
Congratulations, Front Page Award winners. I'm Edie Lederer, the Associated Press Bureau Chief at the United Nations. I've worked for the AP for almost 55 years, and I spent 25 years overseas as a war correspondent and foreign correspondent, starting in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. I am delighted to tell you about Marie Colvin, who holds a unique place among war correspondents, male or female, for her fearlessness and her focus on the often forgotten victims of war, the children and the families torn apart. She was born on Long Island, but it was her work for the Sunday Times of London for more than 25 years that made her a legend. Marie dodged Serb sniper fire to cover the siege of Sarajevo during the war in Bosnia and the ethnic cleansing of Kosovo. She was smuggled into Chechnya in southern Russia, sneaking past Russian checkpoints. She hid with Chechen rebels in the hills, but her car was blasted with shrapnel, and the only escape was to climb a 12,000-foot mountain range in the dead of winter. She fended off Russian paratroopers and bandits, but she said it was a life and death adventure, and she only escaped thanks to an incredibly warm jacket that one of her friends had made her buy. Covering the civil war in Sri Lanka in 2001, Marie walked 30 miles through the jungle with Tamil tiger gorillas. Journalists were banned, but she got through to see the impact of the war on the minority Tamils. She paid a very high price for the story. On the way back to the government side, a Sri Lankan soldier launched a grenade at her, and the shrapnel blinded her in one eye. The black eye patch she wore on her left eye became her trademark. In February 2012, Marie got herself smuggled into Syria to the besieged city of Homs. In an interview on CNN with Anderson Cooper, she said Syrians were shelling a city of cold, starving children. She described watching a little baby die. Hours later, she was killed by shelling. According to a lawsuit, she was deliberately targeted. She was 56 years old. Marie knew the risks she took, but she said it was important for journalists to speak truth to power. The Newswomen's Club of New York is proud to have established the Marie Colvin Front Page Award for Foreign Correspondents as a lasting tribute to one of the most outstanding foreign correspondents of her generation.
Journalists are not having an easy time of it these days. Around the world, many governments ensure control of the media through bribery, or they require reporters or broadcasters to obtain licenses that restrict reporting. Other countries enact laws that equate criticism of the government with support for subversion or terror, or they use officially controlled news outlets to smear independent journalists. Marie Colvin, an American freelance journalist for the Times of London, faced all of these obstacles, and she couldn't be silenced. Colvin represented the best of American journalism. Since her death in 2012, the Newswomen's Club of New York has given out the Marie Colvin Award for Foreign Correspondent of the Year for the best coverage of an event or ongoing story outside the U.S. by a New York City-based newswoman. This year, the Marie Colvin Award for Foreign Correspondent goes to Kritika Varagore. Kritika is equally fearless. She's written widely on religion and politics from Southeast and South Asia. She's covered Indonesia for The Guardian and the Financial Times, as well as other magazines. She's investigated labor conditions at Ivanka Trump's clothing factory in West Java. She has chronicled the reunions of Timor-Leste's stolen children, and she's profiled immigrants who were deported from her hometown to Indonesia. Kritika has also sailed to the Spice Island that was once traded for Manhattan, gone on pilgrimage with Albanian Sufis, circled the U.S. by train as an Amtrak writer in residence, and retraced the footsteps of Victorian naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace. Her first book was called The Call, Inside the Global Saudi Religious Project, and for it she reported from 3 continents about how Saudi proselytization transformed the Muslim world. Kritika is also very funny. She was hired by the Huffington Post on the basis of her contributions to the Harvard Lampoon's parody, HuffPst. Despite all of this serious stuff, and Lord knows her reporting is serious, she actually continues to write humor and satire for The New Yorker and McSweeney's. For all of this, I am honored to present the Marie Colvin Award for Foreign Correspondent of the Year on behalf of the Newswomen's Club of New York to Kritika Varagore. Congratulations, Kritika.
Hi, I'm Kritika Varagore, and I live in Brooklyn, and I'm so honored to receive this year's Marie Colvin Award for Foreign Correspondence. It's been a pretty weird year for foreign correspondents, as it has been for almost everything else. The last time I was in a different country, and the last time I was on a plane were both in March, right before, life as we know it changed. In my very last days in Indonesia this year, I was racing to investigate a land conflict at one of Donald Trump's resorts in West Java. Right up until the morning, I was set to fly back to JFK as borders were closing everywhere around the world, and I was evacuated somewhat dramatically by my book publisher. But all's well that ends well. And as I was sitting on the plane, I realized that life as I had known it for 4 years was over. The kind of things I had taken for granted, that all of us in this field had taken for granted. If not easy, at least accessible visas, the ability to take one-way flights, the ability to follow story leads, to go somewhere and talk to people and listen and maybe not have the most concrete plan and hope that things will turn out for the best, because that's how you find stories. All of those things are no longer possible. Showing up and knocking on doors are not possible. So I feel incredibly lucky that I got to have the 4 years that I did have in Indonesia, India, London, the Balkans, and so many other places. It's been the privilege of a lifetime. And while I don't think my career abroad or work abroad is over by any means, it's certainly true that one chapter of my life has closed. So it's very touching to receive this award for the body of work I did right up until this moment. Something I do hope for the future, while we're all in this moment of forced industry-wide reflection, is to think about how other young journalists, and especially young women, can have the same opportunities and ability to take the same kinds of risks that I did over the last few years, because it's becoming very obvious that the safety net for freelancers and foreign correspondents has not just frayed, it's almost disappeared. It's not a coincidence that my most adventurous years abroad happened before I turned 26, because the whole time I had my mom's health insurance back here in America, no matter what I got up to in Southeast Asia or India or Nigeria. The system is not serving our foreign correspondents, who are by and large mostly freelancers, because the Foreign Bureau, as we know it, is shrinking everywhere in the world. And I hope that when editors start taking on assignments again, when people start going back to the field again, we can all work together to make it a more equitable and fair proposition for the next micro generation or generations to come of foreign correspondents, both in terms of the risks that we have to incur, in terms of safety, in terms of legal retribution, in terms of security risks. It's all increasingly being shifted to the people on the ground. I don't think any of us thinks that system is truly working, and I think a better world is very much possible. The pandemic has showed us how quickly things can change, sometimes in really bad ways, but also I think in good ways. And I hope that foreign correspondents who come after me can take even more risk than me and feel comfortable doing so, because that at the end of the day, that is still the way to get this job done. I don't think that needs to change. I don't think that can change or should change, but there are risks and there are risks. So I would love to be a part of those changes going forward, and I hope all of us can do that as well. But that's talking about the future, and in the present, and talking about the work that I've got to do in the past. I'm really, really honored to have been selected for this award. And this community of women and female journalists is pretty unique, and I feel very privileged to be a part of it. And I can't wait to see what everyone gets up to after this is all over. Thank you again.
Hi, I'm David Rode, an editor at The New Yorker. The entire New Yorker family thanks the Newswomen's Club of New York for naming Alexis the 2020 Front Page Award Journalist of the Year. Editing Alexis in 2020 has been an honor and a delight for me. Her work this year and every year is absolutely extraordinary. We thank you for recognizing Alexis. On April 2nd this year, as COVID was ravaging New York City, I received the following email from Alexis. Quote, "Hope you're keeping well. Would you be interested in a piece on how sex workers around the country, and specifically dancers at an Upper East Side strip club, immigrant, white, of color, undocumented, are being disproportionately affected by moral provisions to government relief?" The message shocked, surprised, and thrilled me. As journalists were flocking to emergency rooms, Alexis was thinking of the marginal, and she was adding an insight. A group that functioned as independent contractors was being neglected during the pandemic because of political and social bias against their work. The result was a masterful 2,000-word piece that brought this group dignified and respectful coverage. After the killing of George Floyd, Alexis wrote a detailed piece on how defunding the police might actually work. During the pandemic, she spent days with workers from a community anti-violence organization that tries to mediate conflict on the street without involving the police. After that, she profiled a half-dozen teenagers working in grocery stores and restaurants during the pandemic as they grapple with the pressure to help support their families, protect vulnerable loved ones, and at the same time plan for their own future without getting sick. Lastly, Alexis wrote about rural households in America that don't have access to safe sewage systems. In Alabama, she focused on one family whose life showed how entrenched poverty and unusual geology have created a public health disaster. Thank you again for honoring Alexis.
Good evening. We're all aware that the year 2020 has been filled with unprecedented events, most notably, of course, the global pandemic that upended all notions of normalcy and routine. But no matter the twists and turns, all along the way, a lot of good and sometimes even great journalism has followed. The women honored in this year's Front Page Awards are all shining examples of what dogged reporting can yield, even when you're social distancing or quarantining in your home. This year, the winner of the Journalist of the Year award, Alexis Okeowo, challenged herself to report on how the most vulnerable New Yorkers were experiencing the deep inequities being revealed by the coronavirus pandemic. When we think of great journalists worthy of the name, we think of people like Miss Okeowo. Alexis, congratulations on being selected as Journalist of the Year. Yours is essential, noble work.
Hi, it's Alexis Okeowo, and I want to thank the Newswomen's Club of New York for this award. It's such an honor to be named Journalist of the Year, and I feel very privileged to have reported on the pandemic, the protests, the election this year, and to be doing it from The New Yorker, both for the print side and especially for the website this year, where starting back in April, I was able to be part of an incredible group of reporters who were reporting from the epicenter of the pandemic in New York. The stories I chose to do, focusing on people who were most vulnerable this year, from sex workers to children who were also essential workers, to people who were trying to find a way to achieve community safety outside of policing. I wanted to work on stories on the most marginalized, most vulnerable, and the people who were trying to look out for also the most vulnerable and more marginalized in our communities. And so I appreciate being recognized for this work. And I think that this year was uniquely trying but ultimately rewarding time to be a journalist, because I think that telling the truth, telling stories of people who are ignored is more important than ever. And I think that despite rhetoric from the government, people realize that, and people want to hear stories about people who are just sort of falling off the radar or who don't get as much attention. And I think this was a year to do that. And I think journalism, it was an incredible year in journalism. I think a lot of journalists did incredible work on people who are suffering the most. And I want to thank the Newswomen's Club again for this honor. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am Jackie Reed, and I am so happy for the opportunity to join in the celebration of Joyanne Reed, who is my good friend and play cousin, for this Front Page Award for Lifetime Achievement. Joyanne and I became very close some years back when I was hosting a group of students from my undergraduate alma mater, Clark Atlanta University. I had 10 students in New York, 11 students for a boot camp where they would spend some days of the week with professional journalists in workshop, and the rest of the time they would spend in internships, and they each had individual internships. And I could not find internships for about 6 of them. And I went to Joy, who was the managing editor of the Griot at the time. And I said, hey, can you take 1 or 2 of my students? And in talking about the situation, she realized that I had 6 that needed placement. And she took all of them. She said, I'll take the remaining ones that you have, I will place here, which just speaks to who she is and how she loves to give back. And to this day, those students talk about that experience working at the Griot and working and learning from Joyanne. She's a role model, not just for young people, but for those of us that are seasoned as well, not calling myself old, but just saying the spirit of excellence that Joyanne brings to everything that she does. She's so prepared and so thorough that it makes us all proud, but it also inspires us. And she does it all while remaining so relatable and down to earth. I'm telling you, when Joyanne and I back in the days before COVID would walk the streets of New York City, people would always want to stop her and talk to her and, just tell her how much she loved them. And she would stop and take pictures and just interact with everybody. She loves people. And as she moves up the ladder, she lifts as she climbs, and look no further than Tiffany Cross for an example of that, who will now be part of the new weekend team that's replacing the AM Joy show that Joyanne used to host, and now she has moved on to the Readout. But Tiffany, there are so many Tiffany Crosses behind the scenes whose names you may never know that are part of Joyanne's staff, who are just people who are colleagues that work with her, or just are friends of hers that Joyanne has made the time to help them, to uplift them, and support them in any way that she can, all while being a great wife and mother to her 3 beautiful children. So Joyanne, my friend, I salute you. I celebrate along with everyone else. You deserve this, and congratulations.
You're the first woman of color to anchor a primetime news show on MSNBC, and you're also the only Black woman currently anchoring a primetime news show on any of the major networks. That is, what an accomplishment.
The news business is dynamic and probably has never been more important.
The Readout.
Let me finish. You didn't answer it. Hold on, Boris. Boris, I'm going to let you in. Boris, we're not going to crosstalk. Okay. One of us is going to talk at a time. And when it's AM Boris, you can talk whenever you want. Do you believe, looking back now, that forthrightness on race is what cost you those white working class voters?
I think it was a combination of a lot of factors, but that was certainly part of the equation.
The most volatile post-election transition period in modern American history.
You've already played the politics of division. Look, I knew it was going to be 3 against 1 when I agreed to come in.
We're not going to filibuster. We're not going to filibuster.
No, we're not. I'm going to answer the question.
One person's going to talk at a time. One person's going to talk at a time, okay? It can't be only you. That's the problem.
We were thinking of you as vice president, but then you took this job.
I freaking mean it. Congratulations.
I am so excited about your new show.
Good evening, I'm Joy Reid, and welcome to The Readout. My first guest is the man who will face Donald Trump in November. Former Vice President Joe Biden, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Senator Kamala Harris of California. Joining me now is Stacey Abrams, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, Alicia Garza, and Patrisse Cullors, co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement.
I grew up, being a news junkie from 6th grade on, and, everyone that was sort of telling me the world and telling me about the news, the Ted Koppels of the world, the Dan Rathers, all the people that I admired, it was all white guys. Yeah. Right? There were very few people like me that I could really see on TV. So when I finally saw Gwen Ifill, it was like, oh.
Breaking news tonight from the Department of Justice from the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin, where protests are continuing after another police shooting of a black man. Kamala Harris has now made history. For a lot of black women in America today, this is the ultimate affirmation. Never again will little black girls and brown girls and white girls and Asian girls ever think of the Vice President of the United States and not see themselves. Vote for all the people who were denied for centuries this basic right of citizenship, the enslaved and their descendants who still had to fight for the vote 100 years after the 13th Amendment. Women who went to jail for demanding suffrage and only got it on the 19th out of 27 amendments to our Constitution. Vote because our rights matter, our lives matter, our planet matters, and because you matter. For me, it's all personal. This is a huge accomplishment for this country. Think about the fact that this entire convention thus far, I think, is such an affirmation of what America can be and what it has become.
Well, hey, everyone. I want to first of all thank the Newswomen's Club of New York for honoring me as your 2020 Front Page Award recipient for Lifetime Achievement. It's such an honor, first of all, to be in the company of my fellow and previous recipients. This is actually a BFD, a big deal, and I really, truly appreciate it. I have always been a news junkie, but I grew up at a time when most of the people who were telling me the news were white men. There were so few women, let alone women of color, that when I finally got my eyes on Gwen Ifill, when I finally saw Carol Simpson and Connie Chung, it was everything to me. And I was so excited to know that there were women and women of color who were doing this thing that was telling me the world and the way the world was supposed to be. So it's such an honor to be in a position to be rewarded for making it in this business for more than 20 years. I have been at this since like 1998, which is a really long time, but have done everything from working in local news at the Fox and NBC affiliates in Miami to working in radio. Big ups to James T. and Tamara G., who were my first radio hosts who I produced and also did a little part of that show on air, all the way through being a digital editor at WTVJ, and Yvette Miley being the person I looked up to, who then later hired me to be at the Griot when that was a part of NBC News. I've just had this really incredible journey that's taken me all over the place, in and out of media, through politics and back to media again, from the Griot, which was this incredible young company, to MSNBC, hosting shows there from The Read Report to AM Joy to my current show, The Readout. I've just really had this incredibly blessed and lucky career. But the biggest blessing, I would say, would be all of the incredible women who've been a part of my path. And so I just want to big them up for just a moment. The great Tamron Hall, Melissa Harris Perry, Alex Witt, Chris Jansing, Alex Wagner, and again, Yvette Miley, people who gave me opportunities to sit in the chair and to actually guest host and be part of their panels, and who just inspired me to do what I am doing now. And of course, my incredible colleagues who inspire me every day and who gave me opportunities and recognized that I had a little bit of talent and gave me a chance. The great and glorious Rachel Maddow, Nicole Wallace, my girls who we do the election night stuff together, who are so incredible. My incredible executive producer on The Readout, Tina Urbanski. Girl power, yes, all the female producers that I worked with on AM Joy, of course, my team at The Readout, and then the next generation of incredible women who are in this business, the people like Tiffany Cross and Yamiche Alcindor and Zerlina Maxwell, Amnika Thompson, executives like her who are, growing inside of NBC Universal. Rashida Jones, who was just this powerhouse inside that building. And so Newswomen are really making history. We are living out the legacy of Gwen Ifill, and I'm just so proud to be even a small part of that. So I want to thank you so much for this incredible honor, and I wish you all an incredible night, an incredible rest of the year, and just thanks for letting me be a part of the club. Thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful night.
Wow, what a show. Congrats again to our winners. Thank you to the Front Page Awards Committee. Thank you to our sponsors.
And thank you to the judges that read, watched, and listened to hundreds of entries to find the cream of the crop, this year's winners. We hope to see you all again soon. But until we do, here is our special musical guest everywhere with a moving song and message.
We got a long, long way to run, yeah. Yeah. Thank God I came for the marathon. Dear Mr. or Mrs. New President, I'm not a political figure or a voice of the people, I'm a citizen. And I was wondering if you would hear me out for a second. I may have found a solution to a not so simple problem in this nation. We tried love. Oh, yeah. We need love, 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 love. We tried love. 'Cause we need love, 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 love. There's not a person on this earth who's perfect. I don't claim to be myself. But if we focus on the root of all our judgments, I think that might help, yeah. If I see the sawdust in another person's eyes, but can't see the sequoia that's been growing in mine, I'll never know that hate is a tradition that's been blinding us from seeing ourselves. 'Cause we need love, 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 love. 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 We need love.